Well, hello there, YouTube. Internet, this is Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, and what were you just listening to was a track by Warped Freaks, and that is one of Marcus H's projects, and I'm going to ask him about that song here a little bit later on. And yeah, so here we are. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you guys are having any trouble hearing me or anything weird going on out there. I believe everything should be good. Here pretty soon, I'm going to give Marcus a call on Skype. I just wanted to do a quick intro, but I'm not going to waste too much time with just me on the camera because I've had a lot of podcasts in a row with just me, so it's great to have a guest coming on tonight, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So just real quick, a couple of little news stories I wanted to mention. First one being just in Linux news is Dell has released several new laptops and some developer systems that are going to ship with Ubuntu Linux stock, which is pretty cool. And they've done that in the past several times, actually. It seems like they do it, and then they stop, and then they do it again, and they stop, and now they're doing it again. So a couple of the Precision laptops are going to have Ubuntu as an option, and it's actually like $60 some cheaper or something like that if you get it with Linux, so that's pretty cool. You know, of course, you can always install Linux on a Dell system fairly easily. Most of them are Linux compatible pretty much right out of the box, which is why I like Dell. I often use Dell myself because they are pretty Linux friendly. The one I'm using right now is this Dell 5000 or Inspiron 5000 series gaming laptop that I'm running Ubuntu 1904 on. Which I use in a lot of my videos. Excuse me. But the only problem with this one is since it has kind of a wacky graphics card in it, it's a little bit more of a challenge to get to work correctly with Linux. But I will say it's actually more of a challenge to get it work correctly with Windows too, because it just has like this. It's got a discrete graphics card and a built-in, graphics card on it, and it's a Radeon RX and an R7. So it's like, it's pretty crazy. It seems like, especially since the last few Windows updates, Chrome tends to make the graphics card lock up on this thing quite a bit, which is kind of annoying. It actually runs a little bit better in Linux. So I'm streaming with Linux right now, so hopefully we won't have any issues tonight. So, let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to mention? I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend here if you're in the U.S. We had a Memorial Day, and I went to Pittsburgh with Victor. We went to see my cousin, Jen, who lives in Pittsburgh with her husband, Adam, and that was a lot of fun. We spent the day in Pittsburgh and the night. And got to tool around Pittsburgh and see the sights. I hadn't been there in a really long time since I was like pretty young. And it's definitely I don't know, I feel like that it's improved quite a bit. When I was younger, Pittsburgh, I always thought was kind of cloudy and depressing and dirty. Well, not really dirty, but just there were like a lot of skinheads there when I was young and stuff. And like now it seems to be much, much nicer. There's like, it reminded me of like a little like kind of a slightly smaller Toronto a little bit, and I really like Toronto. So that was fun, and then afterwards we went to West Virginia to visit my dad and little sister and brother and stepmom there, and that was a lot of fun as well. So that was great. I hadn't been there in a while. And now I'm back here in Brooklyn. And then we had like a crazy couple of days of weather here. There was like a hurricane warning the night before, or not hurricane, sorry, tornado warning night before last, which is like really crazy. I don't think that's happened at all since I lived here. And, a warning, I looked up online when it happened. A warning usually means that one was spotted on radar, and just, basically like to watch the hell out because, there's a tornado on the ground, which like once I saw that, I was like, Jesus, what the hell? But luckily, nothing bad happened here. I think it did touch down in New Jersey, so I don't know if there was any serious damage there or not. But hopefully not. And if you're out there and experiencing some turbulent weather or bad weather. You know, be safe, everybody. And yeah, it's rough. I used to live in Florida, and there was hurricanes down there, so I kind of know what it's like. But a tornado is like, I mean, those things can just do so much destruction, and they're so deadly. It's completely crazy. They just blow my mind. But anyway, so I don't want to get too much into that. Let's go ahead and give Marcus a call. What I'm gonna have to do here is turn off my webcam, because we're gonna use the one on Skype, and what'll happen is then you'll see the webcam again once I get into Skype. So just give me 1 second here. I'm gonna turn off my cam, and you may hear a little bit of silence for a second, but don't worry, I'm gonna be right back. So let's remove this. And okay, so let's go ahead and give him a call. Now let's see. Looks pretty dark there. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I might just put the lights on. Hold on.
Okay. And my camera doesn't seem to be working either. I might need to call you back. Oh, wait. Is that working now? Let me see.
A bit brighter. There you go.
Let's... Well, you know what? I'm going to use my webcam. Because since I was using the webcam in Discord to stream before, Skype's having trouble finding it, so I'm going to add it back in here so that people, the viewers, can see me as well, and that'll actually give us a little bit more of an even space on the screen, so that's pretty good. So give me 1 second. And no, that's not working either. So I'm gonna have to call you right back. Okay.
Okay.
All right, let me call you back. So let me try this again. Let me go into my settings, audio, video, and because I had, oh, I hope this doesn't cause too many problems. Because I had my camera running in Discord, it seems like it messed something up here. Let me just remove this. Okay, remove. Try it again. And I apologize for the delay here, everybody. We'll be right back up shortly. So open Skype. All right, let me just quit out of Skype and then open it back up again. And it wouldn't be a Demonic Sweaters podcast interview if there weren't some technical difficulties. So here we are. It's opening back up. And let's go to our audio video settings. And I think it's going to work, please. Still not coming up. This is really irritating. Okay, so let me just add it back here. All right, I'm just going to have to go without it. So I'm going to call Marcus back, and I think we're just going to go without video tonight. So just let me give him a call. Okay, so we may actually have to go without video because I'm having trouble getting mine to come back on. Let me try it again, but it's weird. I don't know. It was working fine in the setup.
It was working
test, but yeah, now it doesn't want to work. But if you want to stay on there, you can, or if you want to just turn off your video, it's up to you. I'll leave it up to you.
If anybody wants to see my ugly microphone.
All right. So anyway, sorry for the delay there, everybody. This is Marcus H from the UK.
Yeah, northeast of the UK.
Northeast of the UK. So what's the name of the town you're in again?
I live near a town called Saltburn.
Saltburn.
Yeah.
What is the history of that name?
I don't know. But we're between Whitby, which is the home of Dracula.
Oh, wow.
Bram Stoker, and I suppose probably Newcastle is people. You guys would possibly have heard of Newcastle.
I know of Newcastle beer.
Yeah, Newquay Brown.
Yeah.
Very potent.
Yeah, I don't drink anymore, but I used to drink that one. It's pretty good, tasty beer.
Yeah, years ago. It was a regular drink for me. Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about this Warped Freaks project. Well, first off, tell everybody here about, you run a label, right?
Yeah.
And what's the name of the label?
The label's Elm Lodge Records UK.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was basically set up because I started around about 2000 writing some solo experimental music. Experimental music, I suppose. And there was nobody to put it out really, so I decided, I'll put it out on my own label, which was just really, at the time, around about 2000, there wasn't really a lot going on the internet. I'd sent a couple of demos out to some magazines, Future Music in the UK, and they'd featured one track, and I think it just sort of rolled on from there really. And then I decided to put some releases out, just as small little CDR releases, and then just put it under my own label because I don't think anybody else would release it. So yeah, that's just how it does. It's only a little DIY label for myself.
Yeah.
I have released a couple of other things for friends, but it's mainly for my output.
Yeah, I hear that. Similar thing that I do with Anthill Recordings. But yeah, that's cool. Like, I miss the CDR days, honestly. Like that was.
It's amazing how it's changed over. What was it? 2000, so 19 years. How everything's. It seemed to be back then easy. You could produce 50 CDRs. You could go on the internet, find various blog. Well, there weren't even blogs at the time. I suppose they were just simple sites set up, and you just send them out, and you get reviews. It was quite surprisingly easy at the time.
Yeah,
it wasn't with the growth of the internet.
It wasn't like 80 billion people trying to do it.
No, and you didn't have streaming services either.
Yeah.
So obviously you had there was a streaming service, wasn't there? I can't remember what it was called, but
well, there was MySpace, in like not yet, but I think that came about when like
it was just surprisingly easy to do. It wasn't. It was odd. I sent stuff off to BBC Six Music, a show called Freak Zone, which is DJ Stuart McConey, who's a sort of music journalist over here. Got played on there with just CDRs. It wasn't even proper. At the time they were saying you must send, the standard thing, just send an album or send a proper demo, and no, it just got played. So it was just really surprising how I must have been doing something right, I suppose.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like the CDR days, I remember the first CD burner I ever got. That thing was like ridiculously expensive. Well, I didn't actually pay for it, but I traded a half stack for it.
Right.
Like it was like a custom half stack to this guy, and like it was one of those ones that was like a non-computer burner. It was one that was like a standalone unit where you had to like
I know.
It was like a consumer stereo unit, and like they had, I don't know if you remember, but they had like the two different types of CDRs. They had the ones that you bought for your computer, and then they had the ones that you bought for those. And those were like way more expensive than the ones you bought for your computer. But he had figured out a way, well, I'm sure a lot of people did, figured out a way to like trick that burner into using the other ones. Like basically you just took the top off of it and then like put in you had one consumer CDR, you put it in there, let it read the TOC, and then you pulled it out really fast and threw a regular data CDR in there, and then it would work.
So what year was that? What year was that then?
That was around 2000.
Yeah, I remember I think I had a Tower. I'm pretty certain I had a Tower. I did have a Tower computer with a built-in CDR writer. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I'd like get 20. I don't know. You go to wherever store and you get 25 writable CDs and just sit there for so many hours burning these CDs off and making little album covers and getting little printing labels to put on the CDs and
oh god, those stick-on labels that would always come off. Labels
that people used to really hate. You probably send them and they go, "Oh no, not one of these. Just bin it. Not even going to play it."
Like destroy your CD player, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You live and learn, don't you? So like, oh, you don't really need to put. You just sort of think, oh, it looks quite.
Those in the mini CDs in the slot loading CD players in the computers, those would also get stuck in there and like just mess all kinds of stuff up.
Oh, you'd listen to it back and there'd be a glitch on there, and then you'd have to lower the speed, and it's actually bringing back. I might have to get some therapy because the amount of time you used to spend.
Yeah,
it was crazy, and I think I got to the point where I think I did a little mini album, a couple of EPs on CD, and then I decided to get a proper release done, like a proper CD release done, which was just so stupid because it's sort of like it cost me a fortune.
Yeah,
and sold many, and then I went back. Then I found, then there started companies doing reasonable CDs back to CDRs, and I know CDR, some people sort of like, but CDRs, they don't play on certain machines, but I've found a supplier who can manufacture it, and they seem to. And I only do very small batches anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, at least it wasn't vinyl, because I just did a record in 2016, and I'm glad I did it, and it was a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So it's not like I really lost any money. I mean, I did have to spend some of my own money because the estimate that they gave me wasn't quite correct. So I think I had to spend like $250 on shipping, which was like crazy because vinyl, weighs so much. But if I had paid, out of pocket for that whole pressing, that would have been insane. Because it was
the prices, it doesn't make any. Well, I don't know. I look at it and I think, well, okay, round about 5-6. A lot of the pressing plants are closed down.
Yeah.
These pressing plants, there's quite a few now. I believe even Jack White's got one, hasn't he? Down, he's got his own one. But there's loads everywhere now. They're all growing, and you think, well, the prices are staying the same. Like the excuse was, well, the manufacturing price of vinyl. That's the reason why it costs so much. But now you just think, well, hold on a moment. This should be getting. Obviously, it won't get really cheap, but you just think, well, it's time for some of the prices to drop. Because I've looked at the cost of. I'd love to do some vinyl, but do you really want without? I just don't think at the moment in time I'd sell enough to justify it. And I'd only do a limited run of 250 anyway, so the cost is more per unit. But it's something I'd like to do for Warp Freaks, I think, because we play live as well. Warp Freaks is sort of, I suppose, an extension of my solo stuff, my soil stuff. It's just sort of, it's less experimental in sort of electronica and analog side of things. It's more, I wouldn't say rock based, but there's more sort of live guitar in it. And the track you played, Static, that was quite experimental. We did that in the studio, so it was made up on the spot with a bit of editing at a later date. But we're hoping to put something. We've just recorded an album. We're just finishing the overdubs now, and I've put it out to a few people to see what they think, and hopefully some kind soul look at it and go, I might put that. Even if it's on tape or CD, you know, we're not entirely fussed at the moment. But if somebody said, "Oh yeah, we put it out in vinyl," you know, it'd be great. But it's not the vinyl. It's not the end all of everything.
Yeah.
You know, I spoke to someone last year, and they were so pleased that they were putting it out on vinyl, and I was thinking, how much is this costing you? And do you realise you'll have 100 ashtrays in your loft? You know,
Yeah.
will you actually sell it? Will there be any left? You know, some people do sell it. You know, I've got friends in bands who sell, and they do limited editions, and they sell but they get sold out. You know, but you've got to have that base behind you anyway as well.
Yeah, like the thing with now though, there's a lot of these like I'm trying not to get too close to the mic because I hear myself coming in through yours. But there's a lot of these companies that, well, they're not really companies. They're just like people that have these little or not. They're like those record cutters. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And like, so there's several people offering those. Like, in fact, one of my friends, I'm trying to hook up another webcam as I'm talking to you, but one of my friends, Ronan Conroy, he just released a new album, and he had it pressed like that, basically with it's like this small, you know, they just cut one at a time, and they did 100, or I think he did 200, but you could even do like 100 at a time. And like, I know of a friend of mine did one in North Carolina where they even allow you to do like one, like you could do 1 to 5.
Yeah, I've seen
like,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
just do one
crazy.
copy.
Yeah.
But I was sort of thinking possibly getting a disc done, and then maybe getting somebody to do some handmade artwork, album covers, because I know there's a guy in Bristol that did that for his band recently. He got them all printed, but I think his actual artwork and album stuff was all done by hand. So there are ways around it. It's just sometimes have you got the time and the energy to do it? It's one of those things, you know. But we'll see anyway. We'll see. We'll see what the interest is. We've done a few gigs, and we're picking up some interest now. You know, it's like, which is quite surprising, really, when we're not spring chickens. You know, but I think that's what's quite nice about music these days, is that there isn't that. I don't think outside the mainstream anyway. I don't think there's that limit on age now. As long as you're doing something interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, people appreciate it.
Okay, I got another webcam going, but it's just it's not in Skype, but it's people can see it on the stream, so that's good. But and it's also really dark as well. Let me see if I can adjust my light at all here. That's a little better. It's basically an action cam.
I'm a bit darker, so I've got face for radio.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, think about like too, like all these. There's so many like bands right now that have been around forever that still tour and play music and stuff, and they are doing better than like a lot of the younger bands. You know, like, I mean, I saw Guided by Voices. I don't know if you're a fan of them, but I saw them.
Yeah, Guided by Voices, yeah.
I just saw them like a couple months ago. Here, they played right down the street from my house, you know, and like Robert Pollard, the singer, is like fully gray. Like, I mean, he's up there, you know, like, and he's still like doing the high kicks on stage when he plays and stuff, and it's just really cool. They were really good show.
It does seem to be like a resurgence of bands. Like I lived in Bristol. I was born in Bristol in the southwest, and I lived there for until I was about 33, until I moved up north. And the scene there in the 80s, you had a lot of the indie bands and beatnik film stars. They were quite. I think they supported. I think Flaming Lips. They supported the Flaming Lips in America. They did a tour in the mid-90s, and a lot of them some of the bands sort of disappeared. But then now, I don't know whether it's because they've had family and kids have grown up a bit more, and everybody seems to be coming out of the woodwork. It's like back to when you're like 17, 18. All these bands, you know, and you see all these bands reforming, and it's just like, this is really crazy. You know?
Yeah, well, their kids probably grew up. You know, that's what happened.
Yeah.
They no longer need to be there every second of every day. So.
It's like other bands like I saw the Sadies from Canada. I don't know if you've heard of the Sadies.
I haven't.
They're like, they're sort of like a country folk team sort of band, and they're sort of like, they're just phenomenal live band. But it's only because somebody told me about them that I actually found out about them. I saw them a couple of years ago. I actually travelled down to Bristol to see them, and they've got to be in their late. Well, I suppose they're 40. They've been doing it for years, but they've got to be 40s now. But I think it's great. There isn't really you've got the mainstream music, but then you've just got this underground thing. But I think the difficulty with the internet is it's trying to find some of this. There's so much music around that, and the record companies now they've taken a long time to suss out the internet, but I think they've actually now finally sussed it out, and all the money. I don't know, like you're saying, some of the big bands, that's where the money's being invested in. You know, it's these profit earner bands that, you know, I suppose like maybe not the Stones, maybe they're a different sort of category, but there's bands that record companies know they're going to make money. At this point, it's invested in some of the smaller bands now.
Yeah, there's really not much of a reason for them to, just because they barely make, you know, people barely make money off of music, and like so they tend to stick to what's going to make them cash, and they don't make that much of it. Even like the super popular ones don't make that much, you know. No,
not really, I suppose. And I think what the fascinating thing about the internet is, and especially you know, the internet has opened up so many doors to me meeting different people. I got played on, when I was doing the solo stuff, I got played on KLX down in Berkeley, California. A few people contacted me there, and I'm now sort of in touch with them. And I get interested, you get to know about the music scene down there, you know, and it's got a history with the music scene anyway, but the current music scene, and you sort of, even though you're like on a different country, you sort of get involved with it and start appreciating it, and knowing there isn't just your own local scene. There's more to it, even outside the UK, you know. And that's why it's great, you know. I think the internet is there's the good side and there's the bad side, you know, regarding music, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, you found me through my radio. Like, I have that, like, horrible, crappy internet radio station that's, like, 24 kilobytes per second that I have, and I've had it on there for a while, but somehow you found that. How did you find that, anyways?
Yeah, well, I was trying to... What was I was doing? I was just... With doing music and with the internet, and you're doing your own sort of PR stuff, you sort of searching out new avenues. When I looked at a list of all my addresses, I sent things, you know, these blogs and web pages I sent, say, 10 years ago. Half of them have gone. They've closed down. People move on. They get another job, or, you know, it just happens, and you have to sort of start looking afresh and think, what's the latest. What can I do now to push my music? And it's podcasts. So I think I went onto I can't remember which site it was, but I put in experimental music to find radio stations, and yours popped up, and I just like the way you approach things with the UFO angle as well. I just thought that was quite good.
Oh, nice.
You know, it just popped out, and I thought, oh yeah, you know. And I've been played on WFMU. On New Jersey, or you know, it's that area, and they like my stuff, and I thought, well, it's obviously a few people in the locale that could be interested. And I think it's just that's all you have to do. You just, you know, show a bit of appreciation to people, and just push forward and get the music out.
Well, for those of you listening that don't know, I have a streaming radio station. That's what we're talking about, and it's just at radio.demonicsweaters.com, and it's really low bandwidth, but it it repeats all of these podcasts. Basically, are all in rotation in the night, and then in the day there's like a whole mix of music. Like Marcus's music's on there, mine, and some other friends of mine, and stuff like that. It's pretty low quality audio quality, but I still think it's pretty cool. And I have it playing 24 hours a day, so go check it out.
Well, I think that's the way things are with music these days. I was saying about that in KLX Berkeley. I got contact with a guy called Jason Miles down there. He's a guitarist in a band with his wife at the time called La Finja Absolute. And I said to him, I think I just contacted him and just said, do you fancy me doing a remix? And they said, yeah, okay. And they just sent me the music, the stems over, and I did a remix for them, and that's what's lovely about the internet. You can contact people, and you don't have to be selling your music. You just think, well, I like your music. I fancy promoting that myself. You do. It's sort of you'll promote someone else's music. Well, I heard this the other day. You put it on Twitter, or or put it on whatever social media is at the time. But things move so quickly. You just don't know in 10 years' time what is going to be the social media. Twitter might still be. Look at MySpace. It was massive at the time, wasn't it? And then
I know, it's crazy.
It's still there, isn't it? It's still there.
But it's like not even recognizable. It's got this weird.
It's just that's it.
Like it even like scrolls horizontally. I'm like who would design a site to scroll this way? Like it's so weird. Like
it's like Last FM as well. That was. I haven't been on that for years.
Oh, yeah.
I had my music on there, and then they stopped. They stopped something. You couldn't share something, and I think it was a bit similar to SoundCloud, where they stopped you sharing music into groups.
And so Last FM was confusing for people too. Like a lot of people found it confusing, I think.
Yeah, I just put my music up there, and I know what you mean.
Like it wasn't normal people, like non-musician people. They're like, "What the hell is scrobbling?"
Yeah, but it's still going.
Is it?
Sort of like, yeah, apparently. I went the other day just to see, because it still picks up like your music gets played on radio. Like ours got played on a internet radio station over here called Dandelion Radio. It's sort of like an ode to the John Peel, DJ John Peel, who was Radio 1. He just championed alternative music for decades. And you get played, and you find out it's being scrolled on Last FM. It's like, but then you look at SoundCloud, and that was really, really good. And then they stopped you sharing tracks onto other groups.
Yeah.
So say like experimental, somebody had set up their own experimental music group. And
SoundCloud started getting overrun with spammers too. Like there was so much spam on there. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what wasn't there 19 years ago. You didn't have that, apart from me spamming people trying to promote music. But you had like. Yeah, it was a simpler time because people just hadn't caught up, and it was only by fluke that I think I didn't go out of my way plan. Oh, I know, I've gone internet, and I think it's just you work it out and think, well, okay, this is the way to promote it. I'll send stuff off. It's just... So,
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions too, because I feel like we haven't really, talked about what you're actually doing on this stuff. Warped Freaks, what are you playing in this, and how many people are involved in this?
There's two of us in the band. There's me, and I play guitar. Basically, I'll tell you how it was set up. A friend of mine was doing an art exhibition in a town called Middlesbrough, which is just down the road from it. That's probably the nearest town to us, big town. But it's easy to say Newcastle for a bit. Middlesbrough is just, So they were asking, they said to me, do you want to do this gig? Now, bearing in mind that I hadn't played live for maybe 21 years, I used to play in a hardcore punk band in Bristol.
Oh, sweet.
So I that was about 97. I packed that in. So I hadn't played live, and I never really thought about playing my solo stuff sort of live because I just really didn't know how to do it. I could have done it on my laptop.
Uh-huh.
Who wants to see a guy just pressing a few buttons? So he said to me, well, a guy called Gavin said, "Oh, you actually got me drunk." Actually, and said, "Do you want to play this book?" He bribed me with some books and said, "Oh yeah, okay." And yeah, he had no idea how, why, what, or why I'd even agreed to it. And then I knew Phil, the drummer, Phil Davis, because I'd done a couple of interviews for local radio, and Phil was a BBC British Broadcasting Company engineer, sound engineer. So I knew he was a drummer. He'd been in bands, and I said to him, "Do you fancy like playing some drums? You know, I've got this gig coming up." And we just started practicing, and we came up with a format of it. It was like a 20-minute song, but in parts, 4 structures. Mm-hmm. When we played this gig, it went all right, surprisingly, because I played it sober, because normally when I used to play in the punk band, I was drunk before I even got on stage, because I had terrible stage fright, but I got over that. Still a bit nervous, but and I thought, well, we've got to carry on with this, because people were quite appreciative. And then we started practicing a bit more and got a few more gigs, and that's it really. The only thing we're struggling with at the moment is actually finding gigs, because we're not exactly we're hard to put on, as in what we play. It's not. It's sort of experimental, but not. It's sort of sight bits. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, it's cool though. I dig it.
Yeah. Phil used to drum for a band called the Chapman Family. They were from, call it Northeast Teesside. They did reasonably well over here, NME and sort of tours and stuff like that. But Phil's great at, he's a sound engineer, so we record all our practices, and we record. We go into a studio near us to record, and Phil does all the editing and mastering. Uh-huh. And he pulls his hair out because I say to him, "Oh, I don't like that bit. Can you change that?" Or because we play, we don't separate the instruments. We just play live in the studio. Yeah. Sort of mic'd up. We do sort of we have thought about maybe doing it separate, drums, guitars separate. But I go for all my guitars split through 2 signals, so I have various pedals going through one signal and various pedals, and one goes to one out, one goes to the other. So it sounds like I'm playing, I suppose, it goes through heavy delay as well, so it sounds like I'm playing 2 guitars really. Just gives the sound a bit more, there's a bit more volume to the sound. And then we have some samplers underneath, sample sounds that I just trigger at the start. I tried bringing keyboards as well. It was just mind overload. I couldn't cope with all this on stage.
Oh yeah, I've been in that situation this is what before.
I'm doing, Yeah.
When you have way too much, it seems like okay when you're at home and you're setting it up, and then you get to the gig and you're like, oh my god, what did I do?
Yeah, I just thought something always goes. So we do a sound check and something always goes wrong, or something's not working. I thought after about the 8th gig, I thought I'm gonna have to simplify this, because it's just a complete headache, because it's like something. But even when I simplified it, we played a gig in March and something won't work, and then it finally worked. I think nothing. It's just bizarre.
Let me mention to the audience too. You guys are welcome to ask questions in the chat. If anybody's out there, or if hopefully this is working and people can hear us, but I think they can. I think that we're just talking a lot, and so they're not really asking too many questions. But
you can ask questions.
What's that?
They can ask away.
Yeah, ask away. Anything about music. We're going to get into some other stuff here in a little bit too. But yeah, I did. Actually, the very first Demonic Sweaters gig was kind of like that, where I had rigged up this whole all this MIDI gear with it was all hardware with MIDI cables and sequencers and all this stuff, and it was at this warehouse show in Brooklyn, and it was one of these things where the band that I was in was originally supposed to play, but then they broke up, and then they asked me if I wanted to do Demonic Sweaters, but at that point Demonic Sweaters really wasn't even a thing. It was just I just released one album, and it was I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I had all this MIDI stuff, and I got there, and like the one thing I didn't account for when I got to the warehouse is how dark it would be. Because like a lot of the stuff that I had was really old, and like some of it didn't even have backlights. You know, so I'm like, I couldn't even see like what I was doing with half of it, and then like, I mean, it still went okay, but like it was the same thing. I was like, I have to simplify this, and so like after that, I just started doing like, you know, a laptop and like one keyboard, or a laptop and drums, or you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I admire people who can, you know, you see people with loads of MIDI gear, and I just admire them to do it, because I don't know whether you have to write. Yeah, all the stars for me, everything stars need to be aligned for it to work. There's always something. It's just, I just admire people who've got the patience and don't get a complete stress headache about it, you know. But laptop's helpful, you know. You can. I saw a guy who does this guy called he's a hip hop sort of artist, and it's called Faithful Joanna, and he just uses a laptop with a MIDI keyboard and a sampler, and it works fine, you know, for him. I think with me, I was possibly initially thinking try and do too much on stage, and then think, no, this isn't going to work. You either concentrate on one instrument and sample the other ones, you know. So we seem to have found the right balance now, where it's just the guitars through loads of effects and some sample stuff underneath with synth keyboards, and then fill drums away. And we have sort of there is structure to the songs, but we I wouldn't say it's complete improvisation, because there isn't, but there is a structure, but we'll play around with that structure, the notes or whatever, you know.
Leave it open.
Somebody saw us in Bristol in March and said, "Oh, wow, you know, do you improvise? You know, how do you do that? Do you improvise?" And it's like, well, no, I know the sort of the riffs or the notes I'm going to play, but I might just change it. And I'm not, you know, I'm not an ultra talented guitarist. I wouldn't even say it anywhere, you know. But I've not got any proper musical theory. I've never studied music. I've never had guitar lessons. It's just that's how it comes out. That's the songs. Even my solo stuff. I thought about it today before I was speaking to you. I thought a lot of my songs are based on 3 parts in a song, and it's swapped. That's fused into Walk Freaks as well. When you listen to our stuff, some of the tracks you can tell there's 3 parts to it. It never goes back. It just sort of builds and builds and builds.
I see. Yeah, it's very like atmospheric, a lot of it. Like I like that.
Yeah, even the heavier stuff is. I really can't wait to put this when we finish this album and get people to hear it, because I wouldn't say it was a shambolic recording process, but it's interesting. It's not, you know.
This
it's
band, yeah. I mean, I love projects like that. If you can find the right musicians who can kind of improvise and combine that with, I don't know, like they just feel that vibe, you know, and can work off of it.
Yeah, like I said, you don't necessarily need to be really proficient at the instrument you're playing. As long as you're playing
you
something
have to have taste.
That's it. There has to be some sort of interesting thing going down. You can have all the musical theory in the world, but if you can't actually go and break it all up and go back to square one, and well,
some people can do too much. You know, if they have too much training, you know, like because there was a project I did called The Children of Mu that was all improvised, you know, sometimes loose structures, or not structures, but like kind of like a riff, you know, and then we'd improvise around that. But when I started that project, it was in Florida, and everybody down there, I felt like handled, you know, the concept really well. But then when I got up to New York and started doing it, it seemed like that it was kind of harder to find people that were, you know, like willing to, they were thinking too hard or something. They were like trying to do too much, and like it just didn't really work the same, so it didn't really last. But we got a little bit of good recordings with those guys, but not as many as the Florida people.
Yeah, we had that ourselves. We thought about maybe getting a bassist in, or I don't know, even some like saxophonist or something. You know, something really a bit out there. But then we started thinking, well, like Phil would say, because he has friends, sort of jazz musicians, and I said, yeah, the problem is, though, you know, I love jazz, but you can just so overcomplicate stuff.
Yeah.
And you get that sort of, you know, when somebody's got too much knowledge, I suppose in a way you sort of start to feel a bit threatened. I don't know if if you've got somebody saying to you, no, you need to play it in this key. Yeah? Like Phil says to me, what key is it? And I just go, well, yeah. What time signature? He'll say to me, you were playing a really weird time signature, and I just go, was I? It's just like, that is the limit of my theory. It's literally like, I just play it, and whatever comes out is the way. It's. I wish that, I suppose in a way I wish I did have a bit more theory behind me, because I could probably explain myself a bit better.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to, I'm kind of in the middle there. Like I learned, well, when I was really young, I took lessons, and learned how to read and stuff like that. But then I went a long time without ever doing it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of forgot a lot of stuff. And then not until like recently when I started teaching, like the past couple of years, where I started to like get back into, learning actual, theory and stuff like that. But even with
don't get me wrong. I've basic theory. Because I did music. We had music lessons at school, so I learned theory. My dad, just as amateur, used to play jazz piano just for himself, really. So there was always music around, and I'd look through his music books, and so I suppose there is. I suppose if I dig down, there is some theory there.
Yeah.
But it's when it gets really theoretical about it. It's just I think with anything in my life is I get to a point where I know something, and that's all I need to know, and that's it. And perhaps that's with music as well. I don't know. I don't know. But then sometimes I think, I'd love to go and get some guitar lessons and like just see what I can do. And then I think, I'm happy where I am.
So,
but me and Phil work. We're a bit sort of chalk and cheese in some respects. He's very, Phil's very technically gifted in not just music, but his work he does as well. Very sort of scientific. I'm not really that. Not say educated. I am, but I'm not technically wise. It's. But it works. It works. I think Phil sees what I'm doing, and I like what Phil does, and it works.
It sounds like you have a good connection going on there.
Yeah, we have our tiffs sometimes, but that's what's all about being in a band. But sometimes you don't want. You sort of, that's how bands work. I can't remember what I was watching. It reminded me something about New Order or one of the bands where I think it was New Order. I think it was a documentary on New Order where none of them. They said that they don't really. I can't remember if it was New Order now, but they said basically they don't socialise outside the band.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the band, and it's that sort of friction that helps them write music and discover new avenues of music. If you get on with each other.
Well, before I started this stream tonight, it was so funny. I was watching a video that was Paul Stanley from Kiss talking about when they kicked Peter Criss, their drummer, out of the band, the original drummer, and it was a pretty funny story. Like he was saying how like. Peter Criss was like screwing up and becoming like a big drunk and all this stuff, and they had this on like stage fight where he was, to get revenge on the band during a show, he purposely started slowing down and speeding up the songs, and that just really pissed off the band because they were like, you can't do that to the fans, so they were like, we got to kick him out of the band. But then like their manager talked them into giving him like one more chance, and to kind of like, I guess, like appease the band, the manager had Peter Criss take drum lessons from this jazz drummer. And like obviously he probably didn't like that very much, you know. He probably just seemed like a huge insult, you know, because he already was the drummer of the band, you know. But so after he was taking all these lessons for like all this time, they went back to the rehearsal when he came back, you know, after like a long break, and they're getting ready to play the songs, and like they were going to go through the old set, and Peter Criss is like, I need these all in writing now because I read music now. And
Yeah.
and like forced them all to like give him sheet music of all the old songs. And they just had that one rehearsal, and then they kicked him out for real after that.
Yeah,
But just to be an asshole, this is what he was doing, you know. Like, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah. There was a story of Keith Moon out of the Who. He'd gone in about 65 or 60. He thought he might need a bit more technical know-how on the drums, and apparently there was a famous jazz drummer that came over. I can't remember who it was now. It might have been Gene Proof, but no, it wasn't Gene. It was something like that. And he basically went, go on, play. So Keith Moon bashed around all the drums. And the jazz drummer was apparently like just looking in all, like disbelief, and he said, "Do you earn money?" It's like, "Do you earn money from this?" He said, "Yeah, well, I'll just keep on doing what you're doing."
Yeah.
Because there's just no way he could teach him.
Yeah.
Like the theory, it was just like
Yeah, he had such an unorthodox style, Keith Moon.
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah, it was pretty much unorthodox. He was certainly a one-off in person, in character as well.
Yeah, he had a great feel though. Well, most of the time. If he got too drunk, it was pretty bad. But
yeah. When he had the horse tranquilizers, that was a bit.
Yeah. I think that was in like the gold when he had goldfish in his tom. Like at that point, like I felt bad for those goldfish. It had to be like hell.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I was explaining to someone about when they played on the Smother Brothers, Tommy Smothers show on in '67 or something. He always had that stating where he blew his drums up, and he kept, because obviously the US studio technicians at the television studio didn't realise that. He just kept saying put more in. And it's on YouTube, you can see it, and he sets this explosion off, and it's just, you can't see anything, it's just a massive flash of light. Yep. Pete Townsend has all over the place, and he's just a crazy bloke.
Yeah, he went deaf. Pete Townsend went deaf in 1 year because of that.
Yeah, there was something about that. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. Well, hey, why don't we let's take a bathroom break, and I'll play a song again, and then we can come back and let's switch up the topic to UFOs.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to play another one of yours off this Warped Freaks album, and this one is going to be the one, I think it's the first track. It's Nantucket 1.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So here we go. And I'll mute the other things for now until the song ends. And the cameras as well, so you can take a break.
Okay.
All right. So here we go.
Plenty of spirits of a fairly lowly sort who are plain mischievous, who are able to mimic and pretend that they are much better souls than they really are, until they get you trapped in their silly instructions. And by that time you establish such a rapport with you, or you and them, that you can't let go, they can't let go, and won't let go, and they can make your life miserable.
experience of an American editor who played around running a Ouija board. So he found, to his dismay, that one of these damn spirits had got inside his head and was permanently talking. He said it was the spirit of a Nantucket sea cat who seemed to be endless. He was a liar, a Nantucket sea cat never said that, but he said some friend of his, did something rather with John. His name was Steller. He had a fight with his hand. Someone took him over in his hand and wrote it. Each of us has a spirit about alive. Do not mess about with the spirits of the dead. And he says, as this happened, he suddenly felt a spirit being pushed out through the top of his head. And he said, as it seemed to pop out of the top of his head like a cork. He felt incredibly relieved, as you can imagine. And then in that moment, he said he could have told you anything about the future. And then in that moment, he said he could have told you anything about the future. And then in that moment, he said he could have told you anything about the future.
Okay. We're back. Sorry for the sudden stop of the music there. I still haven't perfected that yet in the live version. When I'm editing them after the fact, it's much easier to get smooth audio transitions.
That's all right, don't worry.
But yeah, so
it's interesting that track. Just before we go on to UFOs, that track actually, that's probably another thing about Warp Freaks is no. It seems to us that no track ever stays the same. There's always some sort of development into it. So if you hear when the proper instead of the Dandelion Sessions, when Nantucket comes out on the album, you'll see a vast difference to it. There'll be overdubs and different little parts to it. So
oh, cool. That one actually reminds me a bit of Pink Floyd, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It started off as a sort of not stoner rock track, but it was like a real heavy riff, and then I think Phil wasn't too keen on it, so I just sort of slowed it down, and then the final bit was like a sort of ode to some of the San Francisco bands, like sort of psyche. I don't know, yeah, mate. It was just. I think I said to Phil, "Oh, we'll keep that psyche rock thing, you know, at the end, like the chords, the 3 chords." So
cool.
And just fitted it all in.
So let's get into this. You mentioned something to me. You didn't get into much details, but you have a personal experience with UFOs, correct? Or something?
I can't remember. I did have when I was younger. I saw I saw a light go. I was quite young, and I saw a light go across. And I lived in Bristol. This light flashed across the sky. It wasn't. You don't know. The thing is, when you're young, I was only probably about 8. You know, so you don't know, do you? But it was odd. It was just a really fast light that went across straight as an arrow as well. It wasn't like deviated. It wasn't like it'd come down from like a meteorite, something like that. It was just right across the sky, really, really fast. I don't know. It was hard to gauge, really. It would be so difficult to gauge what size it was. It was enough to see. Let's just say it was enough to notice it from the corner of your eye go across. You know, it was something you saw. You know, but like I said, I was young. I was quite young, so you just don't know. And this is the thing about UFOs is that I grew up when I started getting into it. We had Arthur C. Clarke, you know, the world of the unexplained. Television series on a channel over here, and it was just that starting of UFOs and the paranormal, and everybody was getting into it. You know, it was that sort of. It was a bit like the 90s where everybody was well into UFOs again. It dipped in the 80s and then came back, and it started to come back again. You know?
Yeah, it's huge right now.
Yeah.
So, well, I was just, something that I've been looking into recently, well, actually for a long time, but just recently I started toying with the idea of making a video about it. And that is the whole Apollo 11, was it a hoax? Was it not a hoax? This whole thing, because for a long time, honestly, I kind of leaned towards the hoax. Just because there is a lot of things that are weird, even if you 100% believe, we went to the moon and whatever, there's just weird stuff. There's no way around that, but the more I started researching and looking into it, the more I started to think that I was probably wrong, and that we probably did go, but there's still...
I know exactly what you mean,
but there's still...
I think I went...
There's still, a lot of weird stuff, though. There's some things that I just can't, no matter how many explanations of it. Okay, so, and the reason why I bring this up, I'll get to that here in a second, but, because it is related. But, you have, they did all this stuff for, 10 years preparing these guys, to go to the moon, and they had, these simulated lunar landers, and, I actually saw way more in the past like week that I ever did. And there's a lot of cool footage out there of like, you know, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong like trying to like pilot to the ground in these. Like, they were like these like limb simulators, and like one of them blew up, like, and Buzz Aldrin ejected out of that thing like seconds before he died. Like, it's crazy. Like, so there's a lot of really, really cool footage of this stuff online if you just look for it. But like, so I was thinking, you know, there's no way they would have put these guys through all this stuff, you know, if they were like just gonna fake all of this shit. Like, they had to be training them for something, you know, like, and so like, but the, you know, like, and there's the whole Van Allen belt, all that stuff where people say, oh, it was impossible for them to pass through that without being killed. But the more you look into that, the more you realize that's just wrong. You know, like, they just went through it fast. That's how they did it. And like, they had shielding, you know, and they went through it fast, and they beat the radiation, you know, by going, they weren't exposed to it for very long. They probably got some radiation, you know, into them, but they wouldn't have died. Like, somebody worked out the exposure that they would have had and everything, and like, you know, the math just checks out. Like, they could have done it. But the one thing that I just cannot get over is that blast crater being missing from underneath the limb.
Oh yeah.
And like, that one is really hard for me. Even like the scientific explanation, they say, well, since it was less gravity, they can turn the thruster down to 3,000, you know, whatever, 3,000 pounds of pressure per square inch or whatever it is. It's like much lower than like it would have to be on Earth. But I'm thinking, I'm like, well, 3,000 pounds is still quite a lot, you know, like, there should be some kind of disturbance under that thing. But like, you can see like pebbles and rocks under it and everything. And yet when the astronauts get out, their foot leaves like this perfectly, you know, like, distinguishable footprint.
Yeah.
So it's
and
like,
you think, well, why doesn't it? Why? Yeah, I know what you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
also,
go on.
the limb is like, the way it's sitting on the moon too, like, its feet are like perfectly on top of the surface. Like, they haven't dug in or anything, which I guess if Neil Armstrong did like a really, really amazing landing, you know, like it just touched it down like a feather, you know, then that would happen, which maybe he did, you know, but like, that part is just still really, really odd to me. Like, just there not being a blast crater. But now, like, the more I've looked into it, and like, so much of it does check out. Like, the science behind the space suits is absolutely amazing. Like, there's a whole long video about that stuff on YouTube, and like, how they were able to keep those guys, you know, from not burning up or freezing to death. Is really cool. Like, it's all really amazing, and all the training they did in the suits, it's all out there if you just look for it. But so that got me thinking, you know, and I'm not the only one who's thought this, you know, that a lot of the footage, or some of the footage, is fake, but it's not because we didn't go, but because they found something up there. And
yeah, well, there is that. Yeah, there was that story. I can't. Was it in Timothy Good's Top Secret?
Yeah, he talks about it, and also
and saying there's people here, there's beings here or something.
Yeah, like, supposedly Neil Armstrong said that there's ships.
Yeah, there's ships above the crater, surrounding the crater or something. I don't. The thing is, I don't know, because I sort of err on the. I think when I first read, I think I'm a bit like you. Before I read a lot of stuff, I was probably more a believer, but over the years, a lot of paranormal stuff and things like UFOs, the more I read, the more you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. You know, it's like where that book by Timothy Good, it was a really good book, and at the time, it's, oh wow, amazing, you know, like these beings on, you know, these ships, and you think, well, I've never found you would think there'd be, you know, I can't even remember, see, it's so long ago I read the book, I can't even remember how that conversation came about, or how he got that information, Timothy Good.
Yeah, I don't know. I have it sitting here,
and it's like, and you think that book came out in, I think I bought it in 93 or something. 92, 93, and you'd think now that something would have come out regarding that conversation. There's some sort of broadcast thing.
Nothing
but then
has
they
come
say,
out
well,
about that, but the thing is like Buzz Aldrin and what's the other guy? Gordon Cooper and the other one. There's like 3 of them who are pretty vocal about UFOs. You know, which is pretty crazy, you know, considering all these guys were like Apollo astronauts.
Gordon Cooper, he's quite interesting because he's on a good documentary. Did I see him on? Oh, he's on that Stephen Greer. Is it Acknowledged, isn't it? Stephen Greer film, and he's on there, and he's quite interesting because I think he was a test pilot as well, wasn't he? Something. Yep. He was, and well, I think majority all were really, but I think I don't know.
The only one who wasn't was Neil.
Yeah, I remember seeing the film, The Bible, I think.
Yeah, he was just a NASA employee.
I think he did test pilot stuff though.
But he wasn't part of it. He wasn't part of the military.
He was a private test pilot.
Which is odd. You know, it's kind of odd if you think about it.
Yeah, I think with Buzz Aldrin, it's a bit like, you know, when I said to you about some of these UFO researchers, they all go a little bit like say crazy, but they sort of, the information's there. There's no, you know, there is a bit of truth in everything.
Yeah.
But after a while, it gets embellished.
Well, because they want to make money too. You know.
That's it. Because it is a massive industry. You know, and it has to keep evolving. It keeps going. You know. But I don't know. I know what I mean. I think we're coming from the same place regarding the moon landings and what was up there. I don't. But without.
Well, because there's several things that are just so strange. Like, for one, you know, there's no good reason why we haven't been back there. There just isn't. I don't care what anybody says. Like, oh, well, there's nothing there. I'm like, really? How do we know there's nothing there? It's like we went there like 4 times or however many times it was, and we know everything that's on the moon. Come on, you know, it's like saying you took a boat out of the ocean once and you already know everything that's in the ocean, so we're never going back. Like, that's just like a completely stupid. And like, also name one other thing that human beings have ever learned how to do ever, and then just suddenly stop doing it. There's nothing else. Nothing.
It's all money though, isn't it? I think the general impression I got. I sort of think, why did they not go to the moon? Why did they stop? Why was it like, how many was it? Apollo 19, was it? Something like that, and then it stopped, or was it
14? 14, I think.
14.
Yeah.
And then they stopped, and I sort of thought, but then you look at the current, then you sort of, see, I sort of look at it and think, well, and then you read up on the state of the economy at the time and how people, they just packed it in. But what I don't understand is, like you said, why they didn't go, why, when the technology got better, why did they not send, but the thing is, they didn't send men to space. I don't know.
It's weird. I mean,
I think
there's a lot of weird things with all that telemetry data being missing. The original broadcast tapes were recorded over. The Saturn V plans are missing. Like, or they're on like a microfiche somewhere that like nobody can see. Like, it's like there's a lot of stuff that's like just really strange.
But there was like a separate broadcast channel as well, wasn't there, or something?
Yeah, like they broadcast. The weird thing is they broadcasted it to Australia first.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And then broadcasted it to somewhere else, and then to the world. Like, it was like this weird, like triple, like it hit like 3 places before anybody saw it, which is strange. And like the fact that those original tapes are just gone. They're just gone.
There's an actual film. There's an Australian movie regarding the station it was broadcast. I think it was like I think it's quite not a low budget, but it was a small budget film, and it is based around the story of these guys, this small little astronomy station in the radio station. And they had the NASA guys come over to see them to say, yeah, we use it, and these Australian guys are going, you don't tell us what to do, sort of like it's quite a good little film. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it went to Goonilly or somewhere like that in the UK. I think it bounced. I might be wrong. Somebody would probably say no, it didn't. But I know what you're saying.
How are they even sending a video signal from the moon? That seems like it'd be really difficult.
I don't think it was a video signal. I think it was just a radio signal. They just sent a radio signal.
Well, but it was carrying video, though. I mean, it was real-time video, or not real-time, but it was video.
No, I suppose it was. Was it, or was it just? No, you're right. Yeah. I don't know. It's just something that I'm not technically gifted, but I know what you're saying about like, did they see? I part of me feels that they went to the moon, perhaps a couple of times, and maybe they went to when Apollo 13 with the accident, they had to come back, and then possibly after that they didn't go, and then they basically did a Sagittarius. What was the film? Sagittarius 1 or something. I can't remember what it's called now. That film where they fake the moon lanterns.
Oh, I haven't.
And I think, I can't remember the name of it. I think possibly after that they might well have not. They might have faked it. Because they had to get that.
Maybe they've been going back this whole time.
No, maybe.
I don't know.
But they took that buggy up as well, didn't they? So they drove around the moon with this buggy.
Yeah.
But I think the clincher was that when they got when the technology for taking photos, and they went around the moon, they orbited the moon a few years ago and took photos of the landing sites. I think that's sort of.
Yeah, but they haven't. But they still haven't shown the actual equipment.
No, that's true. I don't know how far depth-wise they magnification. The only ones I've ever seen are like they haven't actually. Obviously, you can a satellite can pick up what somebody's reading in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But why can't you see that? Why can't are those out there?
I want it to be true. I hope it's true because it's fucking incredible. And the more you see, especially when they had to get up, basically they halfway there to the moon, they had to basically eject the lunar landing module out of the rocket, out of the Saturn V, spin it around 180 degrees, and then reattach it back to the Saturn V so they could enter the lander. And then so at that point, Buzz and Neil entered the lander, and when they got close, it ejected, and then it was on autopilot from 60,000 feet down to 9,000 feet, and then Neil had to take the controls and then landed that thing by hand. It's insane.
He didn't go to he didn't they missed the initial landing spot. They had to land somewhere else.
Yeah,
and they were just slowly getting the fuel was running out as well.
Yeah, they had barely any fuel left. Yeah,
it is great. There's footage of the Apollo 6 doing the test flight. It might be Apollo 8 actually. And you just think these guys are nuts because you just think
I know
that rocket and Walter Cronkite's he's it's really brilliant footage because the Apollo goes up and you can hear the studio where they've set it up. They've obviously set it too close to not enough distance away, so the studio's starting to shake. And all you can hear is Walter Cronkite going, "Look at that baby go," and you can hear the noise. And then he says, and then the last bit, just as he's throwing out, said, "The ceiling's falling in," and it's just it's just brilliant because that really just shows the full. It shows the full power of that rocket.
Imagine how terrifying that would have been. Those guys,
to be sat on top of that thing.
Just that, yeah. But I mean, the whole thing. Imagine once you're out to the moon and then you're okay, now we have to get back.
But there were so many things that could go wrong. I know what you're saying because you think, well, there's so many things. It was powered by a computer the size of a calculator.
Yeah.
It was, and so many things could go wrong that amazingly it didn't, apart from Apollo 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
crazy.
but it is amazing. But I do think possibly that after Apollo 13, they may well have decided we can't really risk this, and if anything else happens,
Maybe they were like, yeah, we got lucky this many times.
They can send, yeah, exactly. They can send the rocket up. Nobody will know, would they? So send the rocket up.
Well, see, what's interesting now, though, is like all these private companies are saying they're going. And so, like, so now suddenly the U.S. government has a renewed interest in going there, you know, and they're saying they're going to go back by I forget what they said, 2022 or 2021, something like that, like very soon.
Yeah, it's only because China's going, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. I think they're more worried about Jeff Bezos than China. Because did you watch his Bezos? He like unveiled his lander. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, it's really cool. His lunar module is like insane. Like it's totally like something Dr. Evil would make. Like it's amazing. You have to check it out. But so
somebody said, go on.
There's either nothing there, and they're like, shit, we got to get there first and put stuff there before these guys do. Or there's too much there, and they want to get there to clean stuff up before those guys do, or something. I don't know.
There was like somebody said to me the other day where I work. They said, "Oh, did you read that in the news about the moon being there's like hollow bits in the moon? There's like somebody's." This guy told me, and I thought, all right, well, I'll have to read on that. And I never. It's probably somewhere. And I
well, that's what NASA had said that when
they landed. That what NASA said?
Well, they didn't say that it was hollow, but they said that when the module touched down, it rang like a bell.
Well, I think they're saying that there's areas of the moon that are basically hot. There's caverns or whatever, and I think they're saying something. They tried drilling up there. There's something to do with the moon. The structure of the moon is. I need to read up on because he told me about it, but I think I was half asleep at the time at work, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll read about it later. Yeah. And it's like I haven't actually looked at it yet, so you know. Yeah, I don't know. It was so difficult at the time when I was like younger. I was sort of like I really wanted to believe, and I sort of still do in a way, but I don't know. You just read more and more into stuff, and like you said, it's like an industry now. They've got to keep going. And I think when you look at, like, say, Stanton T. Freeman and Alan J. Hynek, they were like the Project Blue Book. They were sort of where there's the grain of truth. There is truth there. But it's interesting about these new sightings that are getting released about the Navy chasing after objects.
I have a story up here in front of me. I was going to bring that up. What's pretty crazy, this just came out too, like I think yesterday. There's a new, according to a Times report, New York Times, between the summer of 2014 and 2015, Navy pilots reported that they spotted vessels nearly 30,000 feet in the sky while they were conducting training maneuvers between Virginia and Florida. Sometimes they reported the vessels reached seemingly hypersonic speeds. One of the Navy pilots even almost collided with one of the objects, which apparently and justifiably freaked him out so much that he issued an official incident report about it to the Navy. The sightings apparently grew so frequent that earlier this year the Navy issued official guidelines for how to report unexplained aerial phenomena. To date, no official explanation exists for the sightings, though a Navy spokesperson did say that a few of them could have been unlicensed drones. But yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. And I sort of, when I knew I was coming on here, I thought about it, and I was thinking, is it classic disinformation? Are they putting that out there just so people? Because it is, you know, sort of the cynical side of me saying, is it just next generation?
Well,
test flights, and they're just putting this out. It's doing the classic 40s and 50s thing where, yeah, let's just say the UFOs and but then you have what funny you just about that because I watched this. I was saying about Nick Pope. Sort of you missed. Sort of they call him the Fox Mulder of UK UFOs, and I thought he'd gone a bit loop, but I watched him on a New York Post podcast. It was only recent, and he was actually coming out with some really interesting stuff about.
I still love Nick. I think he's great.
Yeah, I do. I just thought. I think he just went. I don't know whether he got a lot of flack or he seemed to sort of. I don't say he was losing the plot, but he just seemed a bit like it was something like a lot of some of these researchers. They sort of get so maybe
Too woo-woo.
Too sort of like caught up in it, you know. And then they go a bit Ikey, you know. And it's like David Icke, and it's.
Yeah.
But I watched him on this thing, the New York Post, and I was really I was quite impressed by it, and I sort of take back what I thought because what he was coming out with was pretty logical about airline pilots and some of the sightings, especially the recent ones, and that report that came out in 2018 in December about they'd sent that footage out, didn't they? But I just still do wonder whether. But they're right. Some of it might be drones. But why bring it out now? Why are they? What's the reason for it? Why is this sudden?
Well, it also could be that they're starting to trickle out more of this information because they know private companies are going to be going more out into space.
Possibly, yeah.
And like they're going to be, you know, they won't have control, or they'll have less control over what, you know, Amazon releases to the world. You know, like Jeff Bezos could go out there and like be like, hey dudes, there's like this giant UFO out here like circling the earth, you know. Like
you might have a point there. You might be onto something, because it seems strange that they denied, most of the time they've denied all knowledge.
Yeah, but now they're saying they investigated.
It's really weird because they declassified loads of files, the UK and the USA. They declassified loads of files and basically said there isn't anything. You know, they basically even if they did, obviously they haven't declassified everything and they haven't like redacted some of the stuff they redacted, but then all of us, so it all went quiet and everyone went, oh well, that's it then, yeah, UFOs, yeah, and then it's all sort of come up again, and it's like that's what caught my attention. It's like, why? Because for a good few years before that, it was like, oh yeah, that's the end of the UFO thing, because all the stuff's been released, and then now it's like, oh, hold on. So you sort of start questioning, and I think you might have a fair point, because there are loads of private contractors are going up there.
Yeah,
and are they going to see something?
More and more. You have three major players right now. You have Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson are all planning space flight. And I'm putting my money on Bezos, because he's the one actually unveiling equipment. Well, SpaceX too, I guess they've been doing some pretty amazing stuff as well. You know, but as far as the moon goes, I think Bezos is probably going to get there first.
More than likely, I think it'll be it'll be interesting.
But it's going to be cool. I'm really excited to see what happens with all this. It's definitely going to be cool.
Well, it's interesting it's interesting what's coming out. Because I didn't realise, like before I did this, I thought, oh, I'll just have a look what's the latest news on UFOs, thinking, oh, it'll only be that thing in December, you know, about the footage, and then it was like, crikey, it's like they've put even more footage out, and now it's on like independent newspapers put it up, and
it's all military.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the Arizona lights then? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that one, I don't know. That's one that I'm pretty skeptical of, honestly. Because I feel like it was one of those things that was, you know, it seemed like there were too many conflicting stories. Like, it seemed like people just sort of said that it was this big triangle, and then, like, they showed that footage that looked like flares, you know, and then, like, the official story was that it was flares originally. But then, like, people started saying, well, no, this footage was switched, and it was, like, from a few days before or something like that. And I'm like, that, to me, that just starts to sound weird. You know, like, flares in a giant triangular shape, you know, it would look pretty weird, you know, if you saw them in the middle of the night. And if they all... But I don't know. It's hard for... That one, I don't know why, but maybe something about the witnesses and stuff. And I don't think there were radar... There was no radar. I could be wrong, but I thought there was no radar evidence.
There is, like, Stephen Greer did a documentary regarding that as well. What's it called? But they had the mayor of Arizona. They did a news conference.
Yeah.
And Mayor of Arizona said, "Oh, we found out who basically said that we found out who the culprit was." And they dragged this alien bloke in, and it was just like all the people who'd seen all this, see whatever they'd seen. It was like just a slap in the face to them, even if it was just secret aircraft or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you guys, and I think he actually apologised after. I think he's on there saying, well, that's not necessarily all the truth, So.
Well, now that guy's he's like a big UFO proponent now.
Oh, is he? Yeah. I know. Yeah. Of course. But yeah, see, I didn't really know a lot about Stephen Greer until a mate of mine said, "I'll have a watch this documentary," and I watched the one regarding the Arizona. And then when I started looking more about Stephen Greer, I thought, something doesn't add up here.
Yeah, he's kind of a shyster, I think.
It's a bit sort of like a cult sort of figure.
Yeah.
It's quite, but like some of it's quite interesting. See, but there's just like so many agendas going on between these UFO enthusiasts. So you just think, well, and it gets so complicated.
But the same thing happens with basically any time people start thinking in groups. It doesn't matter if it's about UFOs or if it's about religion or if it's about politics or if it's about anything. People start getting weird. Like as soon as they start banding together and like having group thought, it just starts to get strange.
That belief system, isn't it? Again.
Yeah, and then like they start having this rigid, like rules to everything. I don't know. It's strange.
That was what was so simple about the 70s and the 80s as well regarding UFOs. Yeah. It only started getting crazy in like the late 90s. Well, after Roswell, when they released all that Roswell information.
The alien autopsy, you remember that?
Oh, God, yeah, that was classic.
Yeah, that's great.
Then it was like, how can anybody believe this?
It's still pretty awesome to watch, though. It looks really cool.
There's a really good documentary that was on the channel ITV, one of our terrestrial channels, in the 90s. And it was basically a current affairs type program called Network First, and they did a UFO. Watch it because it's really good. It's I think it's just called UFOs and it's Network First. It's on YouTube, and it starts off the guy called Ed Walters. He was down in Florida, I think. Down there, he was this house builder, and he said he'd seen these UFOs, and he showed these Polaroid photos, and then they showed footage of these flares dropping down. But at the time, I thought, oh, this is amazing. Like this is like, and then realised a few years down the line, I realised that they were actually flares. At the time. But it goes from there. It goes about how the Russians. It was at the time just after the communism fell. So it was like the Russians were open. I think they quoted the Americans are still wrapped up in secrecy. The Russians are opening up. That was before. Putin and all that, but they were for like a short period of time where they were opening up about UFOs. But it's really good. It has Rendlesham Forest in it. Has
that's a good one.
Yeah, and it has footage as well, like these like just odd footage I remember as a kid when they showed on like RC Clark, and one of them was somebody going through one of the American national parks, and these two objects fly across, and. But yeah, Network First UFOs. It came out in about 92, 93. And it's a really interesting documentary. It was before it went all a bit like haywire, where there was all still a grain of truth in lots of things. But there is, I don't know. See, part of me thinks that they aren't aliens. This isn't aliens. This is how daft it is. I sort of think it's some sort of like dimensional thing.
Could be.
Somebody's jumping dimensions, or I don't think it's like some people from the future. I don't think it's aliens.
Well, do you remember?
There's something odd.
You remember John Keel?
John Keel.
He wrote the Mothman Prophecies.
Oh yeah.
But he also wrote this book. I highly recommend it. It's called The Super Spectrum, and it's got a longer name than that. But it's called The Eighth Tower and the Super Spectrum. And his whole, after he wrote this like later in his career, and after all of his paranormal research, he really started to believe that everything was like that. And, like he called it like this he coined it the super spectrum, and so it's like things existing outside of our frequency. And actually, David Icke says this a lot too, but I think he kind of probably got this from Keel. You know, things existing outside of our frequency range. And then a lot of times when like things would kind of shift into our, you know, our range to be able to see them, they would shift between red and blue and green. Like this is really common. You know, basically the color spectrums would change with some of these UFOs and stuff. And like he started to believe that that was because they were shifting in and out of these frequency ranges where people could see them. And like, it's really interesting. It's a really, really good book. I think it's one of my favorites on the topic. Everything he did, I just really liked John Keel. He was one of the better ones, I thought.
But like Rendlesham Forest is like our Roswell, and that's gone through. In this documentary, they have Colonel Holt on there with the tape, where he's going, "This is weird. Everything's weird." You know, like they're going through the forest now. You can see lights and all this, and then they cut to Larry Warren, who was apparently one of the guys on patrol or something, and he starts saying he could see a craft in this field. But this is in the early 90s, and it was only about 10 years after. And you think, oh, that's interesting. It was a nuclear base as well, so it's like, and they had a guy called Norton, who was I think he was head of like RAF or something at the time, and I think he said something. They were either hallucinating, which because it was a nuclear base, it's very, very alarming, or they did actually see something. You sort of, again, there's a grain in truth in everything, but then it all gets, everything gets blown out of all proportion, and then, because they sort of say, oh, they just mistook, I think it was Orford Ness Lighthouse.
Yeah,
think,
I heard that.
Would they really mistake it as soldiers? They've been there stationed for, are they really going to mistake it?
Yeah, that seems kind of insane.
You know, and there was obviously something, unless they were tripping. It was like, you know, what? Yeah. You just think, well, there's a grain of truth in something, but you just don't know these. You just don't know, because everything gets so. It's like you said, it's an industry. So for people who were part of it, like Larry Warren, he can go around to various UFO seminars, and for him it's a living, which fair enough. You know.
But you know, it is an industry. But think about it, everything is. You know.
Yeah.
Like that's why we're in this post-truth era, because people are starting to realize that, and like truth is basically falling apart at this point. It's really weird. It's a weird time to live.
There isn't truth anymore because nobody recognises truth. They don't know what truth is. And if you say truth, it's hard to tell. Somebody will dispel it and say, fake news or whatever. And you can't tell. You can't tell what's truth anymore.
No. You can't get information. I mean, you can get endless information. That's the problem. Like you can get it in you can get information that proves every single thing you think. Like,
but you're starting to think that with anything. Like I sometimes read the Washington Post. I'll get it on my phone because that's a good paper to read what's going on in the US, and you think, oh man, what is this? What are they saying here? Is this based around what they're, obviously because they have a bias or political bias, and it's like, how much is this true? And you start questioning everything you're reading.
Yeah.
Even like social media, I bet there's been things I've read and I've thought for about maybe a couple of minutes, oh right, and then you start thinking about it. Then, but with you younger, it's been a lot harder being younger and sort of.
Oh jeez. In a way, I'm glad I'm not young now, because it's really weird.
Mind blowing. You wouldn't. It's so difficult, and because everything's been challenged, every media, the established media is being challenged.
Yeah. To
anything, politics, whatever, and you just don't know where to go to the truth. We have the BBC, and the BBC's either anti-left or pro-left or pro-right, anti. You've got everybody just having to go.
And then they start switching places, and that's where it becomes, like positions that used to be left are now right, and like some positions that used to be right are now like, you're like, what is going on? Like,
well, that Sky News used to be sort of like centre right. Well, I know you've got Fox over there, which is full right.
Well, but are they now? Fox just had Bernie Sanders on for like 2 hours, and
did they?
Yeah, and like all these like extreme. They've had like Andrew Yang and like all these like socialists, they're giving serious airtime to these guys. Like, it's really weird. Like, we
don't get that. We don't know that, because over here we just see Fox and we just see things about President Trump tweeting about like Fox, saying, "Oh, thanks for Fox," and all that. So the impression we get is it's basically the White House channel.
Yeah.
Some of the things over here, but we don't know about. We don't hear that. They've got socialists on, and that. This is the thing, like our Sky News.
It's not normal. I mean, it's
Sky
odd.
News. Most people look at Sky News now over here, which is sort of part Fox, but I don't know if it is actually. But Sky News, people actually now are saying that's more reliable than the BBC, because the BBC is. Some people say it's a government mouthpiece, other people say it's not, and Sky News seems to be the one source where you think, well, at least they could see it from both sides. It's really, it's an odd situation, and I suppose it all ties up with truth and that, and it's then you go back to sort of UFOs, and you think, where is the truth in all this? Where, how much is the CIA involved? How much is the UK government involved?
Well, you want to know a really weird one is back on the moon thing. Supposedly there's been some stories that the entire hoax theory was started by NASA. Like, apparently right after they went, and supposedly there was a basically immediately after in the newsroom of like one of these big news agencies, like, there was this pamphlet going around that was being handed out by, I don't know if this is true, this is just one of those things you hear, by NASA employee that was saying, did we go to the moon?
Oh, I think I heard, like, that sounds really familiar.
And that is so strange. Like, yeah. But at the same time, that wouldn't surprise me. Like, that is weird enough that it's probably true. Like, that's one of the...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. But that's probably one of those things, like, I don't know if they just try to scramble information so badly that, like, so then it's like, it becomes this thing where, like, you believe who you'd like rather than who seems to be telling the truth, or who is telling the truth. I don't know. There's just weird stuff, man.
Well, you look at like the original, like Roswell, the original big UFO thing. It was originally, who was it? Was it Jesse
Marcel?
Marcel, yeah. He was in the photo, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And they said he was holding all this balsa wood and foil.
Yeah.
And I think he said afterwards, that wasn't what I saw.
Yeah.
That was just for the photo opportunity. That's not what I saw.
The Navy released a statement saying a flying disc has been recovered. Those were the Navy's actual words. Or not the Navy, the Air Force, I mean. They said flying disc. How can you go from flying disc to balloon remnants?
I know.
Like, that's weird.
And then you have Kenneth Arnold, who was flying over, I don't know, whatever mountain range it was, and he saw, his words were, there was a hell of a flash, and then I saw these objects skipping across the water, source of like objects. So that's where the saucer term came from. But he saw something. It's like the Foo Fighters in World War II. Those flashing balls. So what were they just static? Were they just static energy? And it's. But then it's. Like I said, there's a grain of truth and everything, but it's that Roswell. That is it's just out of hand, isn't it? You just don't believe it. You get to the point where you just don't believe any of it. It's like, which for the people at the time, that's the thing. That network first, it actually interviews a lot of the people who were there at the time, and
when
the
they were
doctor.
Still alive.
Yeah, when they were still alive. So you had the doctor who did the autopsy and stuff, and. You were saying about the fingerprints. He had like their little suction pads. And you think and you sort of think, is he barking mad or is he like genuine? And you think, he looks genuine.
Yeah.
Why would he make the story up? Why? What? Unless they paid him, like it is. Yeah, you can say it is $5,000. You just say what you want to say. You think, well, why would you? You know, it's like.
Well, also, if it were just like a fake story, why would the Air Force feel compelled to change their story so many times? Like, because they kept changing it. Like there was even the crash test dummy thing, like that they changed it to at one point, and then like when people researched that program was in existence like 5 years after the crash happened. Like, so like there's no way it could have been that. So it's like, why are they even saying that? You know, like.
Well, like you said, and if it, like I was just about to say that about the crash test dummy, because if that guy was doing the autopsy, surely he would know it's a crash test dummy. They were like just blooming dummy.
Could you imagine like some guy doing an autopsy on a crash test dummy and like not knowing, like cutting it open and being like, bizarre.
Yeah. Oh, amazing! It's like hollow.
Yeah. And it seems to have no response.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like humanoid in shape, so it's with no like fluids or anything. It's amazing. You know, it's like.
Oh, I wanted to say, you brought up Kenneth Arnold a little while ago. I don't know if you go back and, well, you may have heard some of these stories before, but if you listen back to some of the old podcasts when I was doing it with Chad, we do one on Fred Chrisman, and I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh, was he the Australian pilot?
No. Fred Chrisman, if you want to get into the weird disinformation stuff, that's one name to look up, Fred Chrisman, because this guy, he kind of exemplifies this just weirdness that like you just can't figure out why this stuff is going on, and he's connected to so many different things, and not people just saying that, like by documentation this guy is literally connected with everything. Like he's like the smoking man from the X-Files. Like it's really weird. Like he was a right-wing talk show radio host at one point, and he was also, are you familiar with the Maury Island UFO incident? Like where supposedly this UFO in Washington, Mount Rainier, Washington, like shot out some goo, and like it killed this dog on a boat and like messed up the boat. Well, anyway, it was like pretty much almost proven to be a hoax, or it has been proven to be a hoax. But anyway, he was involved in this. But at the same time, this was supposedly a hoax, but Kenneth Arnold was sent there by Amazing Stories, the magazine. Right. They hired Kenneth Arnold to go out there and like get information on this, and so he went out and he met Chrisman and like all the other guys involved, and he also called some guys from the Air Force to come out there with him and talk to Chrisman because he didn't really know what to make of him, or the whole story. And so these guys went out there and talked to everybody involved, and they thought it was just completely full of shit. They were like, "This is all bullshit." And so they were going back to wherever they came from, I think Virginia, and they were heading out onto the runway. And at the last minute, Fred Chrisman runs out there and hands them a cereal box, and he's like, "Here's inside's the People were speculating that it was the wreckage, like this whatever shot out of the craft onto the boat." And he gave it to him, and so like they took it onto the plane. And literally, like, 10 minutes after they take off, the plane crashes. And they all die. Like, and this is all documented. Like, it's really weird. You're just like, what? And so, like, these two guys that Kenneth Arnold had called to come out there, they were killed, or they died in this plane crash. But the captain, or the pilot, not the captain, the pilot lived. He parachuted to safety. But the two passengers, they didn't have any parachutes or something. The plane managed to stay in flight for like another 10 minutes and just crashed, and they both died. It's really weird. And then later on, this is where it sounds like bullshit, but you can look it up. Fred Chrisman was called to testify at the JFK, the Garrison JFK assassination trials.
Right. And
he was one of the people that I think Oswald called. I don't know. There's just weird stuff. Like he's wrapped up in so much weirdness, and
is he the one? It was he the one who was supposed to, where Oswald had called he was given that one call at the
Yeah.
station at the
It was
and,
Chrisman.
and the woman, oh right, and then the woman had kept the note, she retrieved it from the bin.
Yeah, it was Fred
Right.
Chrisman. And then for
Right.
some reason, some people also speculate that he was one of the tramps, that they arrested, or they took in for questioning that was on the grassy knoll at the time. But it's just so strange, like why this guy's name keeps popping up in all these weird situations. It's just weird. And like he also wrote in some stories and amazing stories that it just sounded like complete bullshit about him like fighting these underground, monsters and stuff. Like it's just very strange story.
Sounds a bit Philip K. Dick to me.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up because but the JFK, that's just a complete old different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, one of the best was where I originally read about him was Jim Mars's book Alien Agenda, and I think it's got probably one of the best accounts of that whole story in it that I've read about the Fred Chrisman stuff. Like he pretty much goes through everything in it.
Right, I'll have to read that because I've never really Jim Mars. I like his JFK stuff. Right, when he started, again, it's when they start diversifying into different conspiracy theories and stuff, or just different things. I start to sort of question it a bit because I don't know. It's just me being a bit cynical, I think.
Yeah,
I think,
I hear you. I like that one though. Well, I always liked him because he would always provide all the references like in the backs of his books.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a really good. There was a talk he did a couple of years ago, I think, and it's really interesting what he's coming out with because he was very knowledgeable on the subject, which is the subject that's so confusing that I don't think they're never going to get to the truth of it. To be honest with you, there definitely was I know it was deviated from that conspiracy theory, but you can't be a good conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
You can't. And I'm not like tinfoil hat and all that, but you can't be. It's always good to sort of just read up on them. They're interesting.
For sure.
But you have to say, like you say, you have to. But yeah, but UFOs, it's just. I don't know. Like I said, it's gone a bit haywire this year. But it's interesting that when Trump got in, he said he was going to unveil it all, wasn't he? But it's probably a bit over. Yeah, it's probably because it was a bit higher than his level of secrecy. But then you think, was it what is it, funding? It's just not there, is it? He's not going to know, is he? But he had that interview with Bill Clinton, didn't he? On I can't remember what show it was. And somebody was questioning him. It was an American talk show host. And they said,
I think it was Dave Letterman, maybe.
Yeah, it might well have
guys.
been. He just started grinning, didn't he? Just that sort of look. And you thought, what it is a fascinating subject. But I think you can go down a wormhole, can't you, with it? Like with anything.
I think things are going to start opening up more now that we're having these private companies traveling into space.
I think you're right. I think you're definitely right there.
It's going to get even weirder.
Well, I have this theory, right, and this is completely nuts. And I think not a theory; it's more like a bit of a joke. But I've always said that when they started CERN up, the thingy down in France, the
particle smasher.
That's it. It all started going a bit wrong. Everything started going wrong because when CERN kicked off, it was about 2007, I think. 2008 was the crash, the financial crash.
Yeah.
And everything just seems to have spun on its head now.
I'd be more convinced if it had started in 2001.
Because
that's really shit.
That is probably that is probably the failure in my theory. The certain thing.
I'd be more, but maybe they did start one then, because I know there's more than one particle collider.
Well, it was, yeah. But,
I have to look into that.
Yeah, but then you got I know. It's only just something. It's not like a serious theory. It's just like it's just sort of something that.
Well,
those
guys though, man, like when you start learning about that stuff too. The more you learn about it, the weirder it is. And not even conspiracy stuff, like the science. Like, the more you learn about the science, you're like, what? Like, it just seems insane, you know?
I know. What are they going to find? It's just like, it's literally, they're playing with particles, it's just...
Well, my whole thing, like, you know, the Higgs, not to completely jump topics here, but the whole Higgs boson, like, that whole discovery, it's insanely fascinating. But to me, if you read about it, what it sounds like to me is they just discovered the ether. You know, like, what they used to call the ether, like this, like, all-encompassing, you know, gas almost that everything interacted with. And then scientists said, no, the ether doesn't exist. But now they say that it does. Basically, they just call it the Higgs field now. You know, like, and they're just, it's basically the ether. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's, I know it's, they're building a bigger one though, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
They're building an even bigger one.
They had a guy, there's a guy, James Beacom, who's one of the scientists there. And he was on Midnight in the Desert. It's a really good interview. Really fascinating. But that was
Dave Schrader.
Yeah, Schrader. Yep. Yeah, that was
I
a
know.
good
I
one.
need to try and catch up with that show because I like Dave Schrader. I like Tim. Is it Tim Dennis?
Yep. Yeah. He hosts sometimes too. He's a guest host occasionally.
It's called Dave Schrader, isn't it? But he did in the darkness and stuff. That was I really like those because they took a bit of a it was like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek attitude towards it as well.
Yeah.
They didn't like take everything totally seriously because sometimes they get guests on and you just I can sort of see what they're saying, and it just go completely like where are they getting this information from? Where are the facts? They just seem to be making up as they go along.
Yeah, he's a good host. Yeah, I subscribe. Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I like all the guest hosts on there too. Like I'd mentioned to you in the chat about Tim Weisberg. Like he's a really good guest host, and I like his show too. It's Spooky South Coast. That's a good one.
Yeah. Right, but I was just trying to think of some other UFO. I'll tell you what song when you're saying about NASA is that I'm pretty certain on YouTube there used to be footage of NASA about the when they film those objects moving, from the space shuttle, they film those objects moving at really weird angles, and it goes like a donut-shaped object, and it shoots out into space.
Yeah,
I'm sure there was footage. There was like a little documentary somebody had made of this. It's disappeared. I can't find it on there at all. There's still the black box, not the black box, the UFO airplane. I can't remember what it's called, but the airplane documentary about UFOs, and they interview pilots, and they have the guy from that Japanese island, that Japanese airplane that was flying over Alaska.
Yeah.
And but they do have footage. They do have some bit of NASA at the end, but there was a specific documentary about like some of the weird stuff that's been seen over the earth, and it's not there. I can't find it anymore.
Yeah, I know. I know the footage you're talking about. My friend had shown me that like years ago.
Yeah.
And we finally got a chat here. Pyramid 7 is saying, "I'm thinking disclosure is coming," and then he says, "How are you?" And I'm good. I don't know if disclosure's coming. I think more confusion's coming, but we're going to see some weird stuff for sure.
I think I think a lot of people thought in the 90s that something was afoot in disclosure. I suppose because of the X-Files, all that helped it. Yeah. But now I don't know. There is something. I don't know why they're putting all this footage out now. And like you said, is it because of the private companies?
I think it's got to be that.
On something, and they're gonna put it out.
That combined with China.
They're gonna have to pay the private companies billions of dollars to keep quiet, and are they really gonna keep quiet?
Well, and they don't even have we're talking about the richest man in the world.
Money doesn't mean anything, does it?
Yeah.
It just means that's more money. That's more money to that's more money for my project. So yeah, it's there's something in the air. Excuse the pun, but there is something. But I don't know. It does seem odd because it went, like I said, it went quiet for years. They unclassified all this information. Basically said, UFOs. No, we declassified all this stuff, and now it's started up again. So and it's not just coming from outside sources. It's coming from the Navy. It's coming from the Air Force.
Yeah, that's what I think is really interesting.
But this network first video from this documentary, they talk about the Belgian Black Triangle aircraft. That I think that's the first part of the story.
So it's called Network First?
Network First was the name of the program.
Okay.
But the particular program is called UFOs. So if you just put UFOs Network First on YouTube, it'll come up with. There's one that's the full series. It was an hour long. I think somebody's uploaded the full one, or you can. There's somebody split it into parts, 20 minutes each.
All right. Yeah,
It's
Amazon
really
has some good ones too. They have some like pretty older ones on there, and some stuff that's not on YouTube. There's some good ones on Amazon.
I used to buy loads of magazines in the 90s. There's a UFO magazines. I think I had a lot of time on my hands. But there are some of them great. Some of the UK UFO magazines. But we had like Jenny Randall's over here. She writes a lot of. She writes a lot of books on UFOs.
Yeah.
She does stuff about the Oz Factor as well, about time storms.
I've heard some interviews of her. Oh, Pyramid 7 just brought up Project Bluebeam. Do you know about that one?
Project Bluebeam? No, I don't know about that one.
Oh, from what I understand, I think that's like a fake. It's a fake UFO invasion that is supposedly being planned by government or something like that. I don't know for what purpose. I don't quite understand, but I guess to just make people think UFOs are real so they can control them. People. Put them in so much fear that they can make them do whatever they say. I don't know.
Yeah, there's enough chaos in the world as it is.
Yeah.
They don't need Project Bluebeam. But I don't know, do you? It'd be daft not to think that governments don't think about that. You'd be. I know there's signs, yeah, they'd be daft not to put contingency plans in place if you just don't know, do you? The more science finds out, especially about dimensions, and the more they're going to discover over the years. You just don't know.
Yeah.
But,
well, listen, Marcus, I think we've been on here about 2 hours and 7 minutes.
yeah,
so
I think we have. Yeah, I can't believe it's taken so long for UFOs.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can come back anytime. I actually really enjoyed this. We should do it again soon. And yeah,
because I've read so many books over the years, but after a while you sort of forget them, and like you get so much information overload that you don't know what's true and what is true, or if any of it's true. And I think we all sort of we all like science fiction, and we all sort of hope that there's something, but you just don't know. But like Pyramid 7 says, I think there is going to be something's afoot, really. So
yeah.
No, it's been really.
All right, Pyramid 7, thanks for stopping by. He said talk to you later. So sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Really enjoyed it. It's good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So on that note, yeah, I guess that's all. But definitely check out Marcus's website. What is your main website, Marcus?
Probably on Bandcamp. It's a go-to Bandcamp. Elm Lodge Records comes up with.
Okay. So bandcamp.com/Elm Lodge Records.
Yeah, it comes up with the Warp Freak stuff. It comes up with the Sword Solo stuff and some other stuff from some other artists. So yeah, there's not. I've got some CDs left of the last album. Not many left, about 2 or 3. Last one before that sold out. But yeah, and keep an eye out for the Warp Freaks album that'll be coming out soon.
Definitely. I'll once that comes out too, I'll plop it up on the radio as well. And,
keep us informed with your music as well.
Yeah, definitely. I always post. I forgot to mention I just released a new album today, and it's at anthillrecordings.bandcamp.com. It's just it's called In Depth, so it's a brand new album.
And if you ever want to do any collaboration, let me know.
All right, for sure, man.
Awesome.
All right, well, okay. So have a good night.
Yeah, and have a good rest of the day. Cheers,
All right, see ya.